Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. I've got a bit of a sore throat today, so I can't shout at you all as much as I normally would, more's the pity. Welcome to the last Kickstarter watch review of 2020, but I've saved a good one till the end, or at least I think so, and I'm not alone. 90 people have already pledged their hard-earned dollars for one of these Heinrich Tauschers. Now, 90 pledges on a Kickstarter dive watch isn't all that spectacular, but I think they deserve a bit of credit for this. It's not a $300 NH35 powered watch. It costs over twice that. These are $630 and it has a very particular 70s look and feel to it. It's also got a number of nice touches which I think go some way to justifying the price and certainly separate it from the crowd. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to run through the basic dimensions and specifications of the watch, a few tweaks between this prototype and the production units that I'm going to discuss, and then really where I see the difference. Where does this watch at $640 justify its price? What are the differences between this watch and your standard run-of-the-mill $300 Kickstarter dive project? Let's flip the camera and find out. Now you saw the pop-up, I'm sure, but I'm going to tell you anyway. This video is sponsored by Heinrich Watches. They will send me one of these beauties in the colorway of my choice around May next year. That's when they're scheduled to be complete. Now, as always, I will leave a link to the Kickstarter campaign in the description of the video, and I urge you to check it out. There's only so much information I can impart over the course of a 10-minute video, and it's a good campaign. I see some of them and they're bloody awful. This is very good. Now, I'm not looking to lean heavily on outdated national stereotypes, but it is very Germanic. It is all very precise. All the information is laid out there as you would like it to be. Now, this is a prototype. There are going to be a number of changes, but they are all detailed in the campaign, which is very refreshing to see. Wolfgang Heinrich, the man behind the brand, is a project manager for Bosch, the German engineering company, and you just get the feeling that this whole thing has been project managed rather well from start to finish. So if you are one of those 90 backers, or you are thinking about it, then I think you can back this one with confidence. So 41 millimeters in diameter, 47 lug to lug, 13.5, just over 13.5 thickness, which I think is pretty good considering there's a piece of box dome sapphire crystal on there. 20mm lugs tapering down to 17.5, back up to just over 20 at this very interesting clasp. More on that later. Now, sized up for me, or not quite sized up for me. As you can see, I've got the diver's extension here all the way out. This watch has been around the world several times, and I think everyone who reviewed it took out a link and then didn't put them back in. I'm the last one to get a hold of it, and it doesn't quite fit me. It weighs 155 grams as it is. I think with enough links to fit me properly with a 7-inch wrist, it would weigh around 168, just under 170 grams. So all 316L stainless steel construction throughout. Again, there's some really nice 3D modeling diagrams of how this watch is constructed on that campaign, but it's a stainless steel all brushed case, crown, bezel, and all brushed bracelet. Very 70s. Reminds me of that Bulova Computron. It's got a distinct whiff of that one about it, but I do like that bracelet. You think it's going to be a hair nipper, but it isn't. It is very comfortable indeed. Now, the clasp. If you're a regular on the channel, you know that I've got a bit of a thing for clasps. They can either make or break the watch experience, in my opinion, and I'm not normally a massive fan. It's a milled clasp, but it's one of these ones with the built-in diver's extension. Now, I'm not normally a huge fan of these, however, I like this one because it's got that cracking lion crown crest logo here, filled with enamel. But more importantly, it also has 3 levels of micro adjust built in. So it has some adjustment, plus I guess you effectively have a bit of on-the-fly adjustment as well here. And the links themselves are short enough that I reckon this one is going to be a pretty good fit for most. All brushed case finish as mentioned, apart from a slight high polish chamfer edge running most of the length of that mid case. It looks pretty good. Now, 70s vintage style, so we have unguarded crown, nice knurled crown with again that lion logo. Apparently that's a reference to Wolfgang's home state in Germany, his home region. Looks pretty good, and again enamel filled here. Now the bezel, you've probably spotted that one already. Crossed hatched, and then they've got 2 parallel wave marks running all the way around it. Quite unusual, haven't seen that before. Bezel is nice, pretty grippy in operation. It is a 120 click unidirectional rotating dive time, just as you would expect, and that is a sapphire bezel insert. I would normally complain that there is a bit of back bounce with this, but that is again one of the things that they are aware of and are going to be rectifying for production units, so I can't complain about it. Zoomed into the dial and hands, and I guess you're either going to love this one or you're going to hate this one because it is super 70s. Big sword handset. Now that little lollipop tip to the second hand with the red and white stripes, bit of an Easter egg there. That looks like a television tower in Stuttgart where Wolfgang is from, so there's a couple of nods here to his own German heritage as well as his love of 1970s watches. I like the look overall. Big teardrop sized applied indexes with a brushed silver edge at the 12, the 6, the 3 and the 9, and circular indexes again with a brushed silver edge matching the brushed silver handset everywhere else. Now the Heinrich logo is rather prominent above the pinion underneath the index at 12, but again that's something they're going to be resolving for production units. They're going to be shrinking that just a little bit, which I think is a good plan. The only other printing on the dial is Tauscher, which apparently means diver in German, and you can just make out the words made in Germany tucked under the index at 6 o'clock there. But what do those words actually mean in practice? Well, not an awful lot, to be honest. They certainly don't have the same sets of rules and guidelines as Swiss Made does, for example. Now, this watch was manufactured in Hong Kong. I'm guessing that's the case and bracelet. And in Switzerland, I'm guessing that's the Sellita 200. But it was designed in Stuttgart and assembled in Stuttgart, so it qualifies for that Made in Germany appellation there. It is fully certified for what that is worth. And the caseback is a cracker, definitely one of the nicest casebacks that I've seen on pretty much anything. The Heinrich name and brand logo again are embossed, so they sit proud on that center section. There is a deep etched recess there with that wave pattern as replicated on the bezel, and that is filled with enamel, just like the crown, just like the clasp. It all looks pretty spectacular. So the usual spec sheet around the outer edges, automatic, 20 bar of water resistance, and all of these designs are going to be individually numbered. Now, as I said earlier on, Sellita 200, I'll talk a little bit about the movement a bit later. 26 jewel hacking and hand winding 4 Hz high beat Swiss made auto. One change from this proto to production units, they're not going to bother with those quick release spring bars, but they are going to retain the drilled lugs on the case, so you should have no difficulties swapping it out for a leather or a rubber if you are so inclined. On wrist, I think it actually wears really, really nicely, and I think it looks good too. Super 70s. If you're going to go 70s, then you may as well go all in. This is one of the adjustments that they're going to make. They're going to bring that end link in line with the end of the case. Again, just another nice little touch showing that they're thinking ahead. They're not entirely satisfied with these prototypes. They want to get the production units perfect. Now, as you can see, if I wrist roll here, I'm missing a few links. I would have that one all the way in, obviously, adding 3 or 4 more links and using those 3 micro adjust holes to get the right fit. Never seen this before with the enamel filled clasp. I think it looks pretty good overall. And that's the overhead shot. The indices and hands are large. You're not going to have a difficulty getting an at a glance read on this one. Unless you're trying to get a read outside, that is. They say they've put anti-reflective undercoating and anti-reflective top coating on the Box Dome Sapphire. I reckon they could do with an extra couple of layers just to make it a little bit easier to get a read in natural light. I do love the combination of Box Dome Sapphire and a sapphire bezel insert. I'm seeing it more and more, and I'm definitely a bit of a sucker for it. It looks great on this watch. So definitely a bit of a looker as far as I'm concerned anyway, but what are my complaints, what are my moans and niggles with the Heinrich Tauscher today then? Well, as I said, a bit of extra anti-reflective undercoating on the crystal would not have gone amiss, and I haven't shown you the lume yet, have I? I'll put the lume video in now. I got a bit of a shock, I must admit. I was expecting C3 old radium style given how photina'd the hands and indexes are, but no, it's PGW9, it's that ice white blue, and it's probably not as good as it could be. This is a prototype, there's a bit of a mismatch between the insert colour and the hands and dial. They are aware of that, and they are going to be resolving that that for production units. A bit of extra lume though would certainly not go amiss. It seems to me though that they have rather ironed out a lot of the creases of this watch between the prototypes and the projected production units. The backplay, the bounce on the bezel will be gone. They're going to neaten up that end link, which though not critical is going to be a nice touch, I think. A slight reduction in the branding on the dial I think will be good. One thing I'm going to complain about though is the crown. I think they need to do something about the crown tube. Now there's a ghost date wheel here that are going to resolve that for the final production units as well. They're all no date. I'm going to unscrew the crown. Now, no great pop, but you'd expect that to be the first position, which should be hand wound by rolling it forward. But rather than being hand wound, you're actually tightening up the crown again. There is no kind of first position, if you see what I mean. It goes straight to pop. You heard the pop. Second position, which is the ghost date wheel. And then the third position, adjust the time. So I reckon the crown tube is a little bit long, or the crown perhaps is a little bit long. They're going to have to fix that one for production units, or you're not actually going to be able to manually wind the watch. And then there's the looks. There's Fotina, and then there's this. I think this is the most Fotina'd watch that I have come across on the channel to date. Now, I like it. I'm a bit of a sucker for it. I think it looks good in all of the colorways. They've hit the first stretch goal, the addition of which is a burgundy dial. The next stretch goal, though, is this one with white hands, indexes, and bezel insert. I hope they hit that one because I reckon that will open this watch up to a whole new market that would maybe think this Fotina look is a little bit OTT. For example, here's the Heinrich next to a more traditional interpretation of Fotina on this Phoebus Proteus Age Steel version, which is in the queue for review. This looks like a Fotina'd watch. This looks almost kind of creamy, custardy, orange, yellow. I like it, but like I said, I think that extremity of tone might put a few people off. My final niggle, no minute markers. No minute track around the outer edges of the dial. Here's the Dorenzo DRZ03, which I reviewed earlier on this year. Kind of similar vibe, similar vintage aesthetic, but even there they've managed to squeeze a little minute track around the outer edge. Interesting that Heinrich didn't feel the need to do so with the Tauscher. And then there's the price. $640 USD is not a drop in the ocean for a brand with zero reputation launching on Kickstarter, but it seems that Heinrich have found enough fans with 90 backers already, and I'm sure a few more to come before the end of the campaign. So what does this Tauscher do to justify the extra cash over a $300 NH35 powered one? Well, I guess the movement is the first and most prominent upgrade. Sellita 200 is probably worth about $150 more than an NH35 to buy. So that's where a lot of the money comes from. I rate the movement highly. I have paid a lot more than $640 USD for watches powered by the same movement. So I think that is certainly well worth the money. Lovely piece of sapphire on the bezel insert as well. And the whole thing is original. These are not catalogue off-the-shelf parts cobbled together to make a quick buck. Wolfgang has obviously thought a lot about this, and all of these pieces are bespoke. All of them are custom. The enamel inlay here, nice diver's extension clasp, the lovely bracelet, the case back, etc, etc. So I think this one does just about enough to justify that price tag once you add on the made in Germany, the extra cachet that comes with that. It's not going to be for everyone. You really have to be a big fan of Fotina and a big fan of the 70s to get this one. Thankfully, I am both of those things. So there you have it. If you're into the 70s and you're into Fotina, you may well have just found your ideal watch. You are certainly well catered for in both of those regards by the Heinrich Tauscher. Fortunately, I like the 70s look and I also like Fotina, so this one has been a bit of a hit as far as I'm concerned. Great to see somebody doing something a bit different and taking a bold step, launching their first product right up there, 600 plus USD, and great to see the community out there supporting it. Also great to see a company basically negating my moans and niggles section by realizing when they get to the prototype phase exactly what they need to do to fix the watch. If only more companies would do that, I'd be out of a job. Thanks for watching. I will see you in a future video.